The people who really have the entrepreneurial spirit and drive are actually the ones who end up being really good salespeople, not the ones who necessarily just thought they were born for sales. We do try to set pretty good expectations up front of the hiring process. We also try to build in quite a few steps of learning and growth. The more salesy you are, the less you're actually going to be able to build that trusting relationship.
What strategies have you found worked when you're heading into an organization? They don't know that they have a problem. How are you making it a need to have problem to solve?
So we also designed our whole sales process in turning ourselves over. Give you access to as much information as you possibly can of what's going on. Show you how we do our scoring. Show you even like how we've built our models and what's happening inside your organization, and then turn that over into a business case.
Behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker. I want to know how this insane growth actually happened. One thing we've learned in helping our founders and operators scale their businesses is that cash is one of their most precious resources. Cash flow is really the lifeblood of any business. That's why we partnered with Flex to help companies improve the way they manage their cash flow. Flex is a finance super app built around a credit card with a unique net 60-day term that enables businesses to make an investment today and pay it back 60 days later with 0% interest. If your business growth is constrained by the cash flow you need for inventory, marketing, advertising, or really anything else, Flex could provide you with a really interesting growth lever. We use it here internally at GTM Fund. For more information and to apply now, visit www.flex.one. That's www.flex.one. Hello, and welcome to episode 1498. I actually have no idea which one this is, but I think we're creeping close to 100, which is pretty cool. Thank you, as always, for rocking with us. You've got me coming live from our new studio, which is super cool. And I have a fantastic guest, a very good friend of mine. Been excited to get him on the pod for a while. I am joined by Dave Greenberger. Dave, welcome, man.
What's up?
What's up? Am I going to be seeing you in 2 weeks? Are you coming to our New York dinner?
I think so. I'm planning as of now. Let's put it that way.
Nice. I don't know what we're going to have to do soon. The numbers keep creeping up, particularly for New York and SF. We're going to have to, I don't know, buy out a restaurant soon. I think there's like 45 people coming already, which is wild.
Good problem to have.
It is. Cool. So I always love to do a quick bio for our listeners who might not be familiar with Dave. So David leads CHEQ's North American sales team. If you're not familiar with CHEQ, it is a cybersecurity platform primarily focused on protecting the go-to-market organization. Think of things like preventing fake leads to sales teams, skewed analytics from bots, malicious users, etc. And yeah, David is super well-versed in building and perfecting go-to-market processes, both from zero and at 100-year-old companies. So you've kind of seen the gambit. CHEQ is David's fifth startup. Directly before CHEQ, David was in a leadership capacity at Hitachi Vantara in the deep enterprise, big data, kind of AI space. And then prior to that, built teams at Foursquare, Yext, Angie, and Splash. And also a founding member of Pavilion. Shout out to Pavilion and Sam Jacobs. And yeah, various kind of go-to-market leadership communities have been super important in your career, which is something that we'll touch on. Well, why don't we just dive right into that? You know, there's obviously this red thread through kind of your career that is centered around community. How did that happen? Why have you spent a decent amount of cycles showing up in communities, leading communities? Why has that played a big role?
I don't know. By accident, I think. But it's one of the best things that I've ever done. So I got hired at a company called Foursquare back in 2013, which probably a lot of people won't know anymore. But in 2010,
it was like the hot company.
They were like the darlings of the startup world, and especially in New York City. They were at the beginning of kind of that boom. And I got hired by the CRO, and then a guy who was kind of the founding member of the sales team, a guy by the name of Eric Friedman, and he was a former VC at Union Square, and then went in full time at Foursquare. And I got in through a referral. When we started building together, he was just like enamored at the stuff that we were doing and that my team was working on, which seemed pretty second nature to me, and me vice versa with what he was doing. And he was like, "Hey, we should share this. We'll learn even more than we know if we get out there and share this with a bunch of people. There's so many people that are building startups right now that just don't really know what's going on." So he convinced me to do it. He got a guy by the name of one of our buddies, Evan Bartlett, who was building ZocDoc at the time, to just start doing this with us. And we started hosting. And we hosted people who were building sales and marketing teams to just shoot the shit and share what we were doing and try and solve problems together. And we'd bring in like one guy who had been there, done that before, to just ask questions to. And it turned out to be amazing. Before we knew it, I now had an excuse to reach out to my kind of heroes in the revenue world, like Mark Roberge at HubSpot, or Emmanuel Scala, or all these great people. They'd come because they wanted to talk to us who were building. I now then had a network with them. These 400 people who were trying to build startups, I suddenly found myself kind of like as a sphere of influence at 25 years old. And it was just incredible. And that kind of started us off. We actually got Sam Jacobs to work with us a little bit.
This is pre Pavilion days?
Pre everything, right? And eventually, like, Sam was also doing stuff like that at the time. And then I started getting invited to these dinners that were all CROs, and me and some of my buddies, and just talking about, I learned so much from those dinners. And on and on. Eventually, Sam took that full time. Max Alter was doing something similar at the time with Sales Hacker. Those guys went and took it to a full time thing. I kind of had kids and stepped back a little bit, but now I participate in those communities, and they're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've gotten jobs that way from learning people really closely. I've negotiated salaries because I knew what the going rate was. I know how to hire. I know what kind of tech to use. It's been one of the best things I've done, both for my career, but like personally, being with a bunch of people who know what you're dealing with and know what you're doing, and you can bounce stuff off of them. And, at the highest levels of the game, it's been fun.
Totally. I feel like communities were the original Chat GPT. I used them in the same way you did. It's like, hey, this company wants to pay me to be a consultant. I have no idea what I'm doing at like 26 years old. How much should I charge? How do I structure this thing? What do I do? Similar with like advisory roles, new roles. Even when I was like building my own kind of role at Outreach, I was like, are you allowed to just build a business unit? Like how does this work? Do people do this? And so, yeah, it's so cool. And obviously you've been just an incredible member of the GTM community since the super, super early days. I think basically inception, which is amazing. So shifting gears a little bit, you and I have talked about this idea of building a go-to-market organization with trust, or built on trust. And I think statements like that can come off as, a little bit trite. It's like, yeah, of course, we're trying to do this. But I know this is like really how you live and how you work and how you show up. What does that mean to you? How does that translate in like a day-to-day when you're building out teams?
I think it's hard, but I think it's really important. I think in general, trust has gotten to be a pretty hard thing in society. Like, we have, more access to information than we've ever had. And I think everyone would agree there's less trust than ever. You don't believe someone that's on CNN or PBS or something like that, but then you'll take a guy on TikTok's word for whatever he put out without even looking at his bio, let alone fact checking it. It's just this interesting world that we're in. And a lot of that is it's too hard to take in so much information at once. And so the key, I think, to getting through, whether it's in business, whether it's building teams and relationships, is anything, is actually somehow finding a way to build that trust and build that authenticity so that you can work together. It's like a very key point of human interaction, no matter what's going on. So, at CHEQ, this is a big issue for us. Like what we do as a company is try to help go-to-market organizations like sift through the noise, understand what's a bot, what's a human, which is interesting, but it's more about what's authentic and what's the intent, right? So to just give you an example here of where we might go, I guess, say today you're going to book an appointment with your barber. You obviously don't need that right now, but
I actually got one tomorrow.
all right. So like if you're going to book that appointment today, you're probably going to call them, right? Maybe some people now and more people in the next like 2 or 3 years are going to use some kind of assistant, like your Max Ultra in your ear. That's your Chat GPT, whatever it is. That's good. But today barbers are getting inundated with bots that are doing fake signups for them. And so if you just say, hey, I don't want a bot to book this, well, that doesn't make sense, right? Because that actually would have been a good appointment. If you say that you wanted just only humans, well, that's not necessarily good because I could be on a VPN right now for work, and then that would be filtered out. So what you need to get to is the true intent. And that's a thing that we deal with. That's a thing that I deal with in my work. It's a thing that we need to deal with internally. I can talk to a ton of people. My resume, I get flooded with resumes these days. It's really hard to figure out how to sift through that information. And a lot of the way that I do it is working with people that I've known before, or trying my best to really be an authentic human myself so that people can trust and rely on me. And that's what I look for in business partners as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does. Totally. I read a stat the other day that, in putting my venture hat on, like we have to worry about particularly when we're looking at early stage PLG companies. There is stat floated out around there that up to 50% of those signups that you're getting are actually bots. So you're like, yeah, look at our, year over year, month over month, user growth. But then you actually dive into them, and those are like burner emails. They're doubled up. They're just literally bots, and you're making real world business decisions based on those numbers, or you're getting VC investment, and that's a scary place to live, and it's only getting worse. Are you having a heyday right now at CHEQ? I imagine the last 9 months have been right place, right time.
yeah. I started at CHEQ maybe 4.5 years ago, and we were definitely pushing the rock uphill. It was a little bit early to talk about these conversations. Everyone knows that there's bots out there, but who cares? And people are paying a lot of attention to this stuff now. There was that story a year ago now. JP Morgan acquired a company to what you're saying, and almost all of their users were bots. It's just their stories pile up every single day. It's something that everyone needs to pay attention to now. AI is only going to make it harder to understand what the true source is and what the intent is.
I feel like at the same time, a lot of these intent providers that we relied on for a long time are getting a bit of a bad rap. And I think a lot of them for a while, it was sort of black box. They didn't show people, where these intent signals were coming from. And I think it's harder now than ever to cut through the noise and find the right signal. How have you been doing that internally at CHEQ? If you're like, okay, like this person has shown interest, like how are you prioritizing which accounts to go after, or which leads to follow up with? Because that is tough in this environment.
Yeah, it's really hard. Actually, for CHEQ's go to market, we have a pretty. It's kind of a new concept, which happens a lot with startups. All startups say they don't really have competition. I kind of wish we had some more competition because we really are like at the new forefront there. So it makes it hard in our go-to-market to try to sift through these signals. Oh, are they using X technology? That means they're going to work well with CHEQ, or do they have a known problem? A lot of times when we're talking to customers, it's the first time we're introducing this concept. So what CHEQ does, by the way, is just identifies invalid traffic that's happening on the website, right? And that's happening a lot. No matter how sophisticated the organization is in their cybersecurity stack, we see like 10, 15% of a website is fake. So what we are doing, we're talking to them for the first time about, hey, you might have a problem like this. And we, if you do, here's how that's affecting your business. And so there's a lot of education that goes on there. So when we're cutting through the signals to try and figure out who we want to work with, a lot of it at first was just, are they pre-qualified as a business? Like, do they have enough volume based on all the other companies that we see? There's a really good chance that they're going to have a problem, and they almost always don't have a way to solve it. Now, what we're starting to build a lot more through is referrals and partners. We have something like 15,000 clients. We've got a lot of the really large players in each different industry. And when we get really deep with them and build some really great relationships, we're able to get referrals to them because the partners that they work with, they want to have clean traffic and sources of the two. It's kind of a one hand washes the other. So that's a lot of what we've leaned into lately, is kind of building these communities, doing some really tight ABM work, and then trying to work kind of through our network to keep growing.
I love that idea. It makes total sense. You do the internal work to clean up your data, deal with the bots, deal with the fake, website traffic, and then the next step of that is that let's make sure all of our partners that we're working with and people that we do business with are also, using the same thing. So I feel like that's a very organic way to grow. But let's stay on that for a second. I think a lot of folks listening to this can identify with the idea they're at a startup and they are introducing a new problem that maybe the market doesn't know exists yet. And a lot of education has to come with that type of sale. What strategies have you found worked when you're heading into an organization? They don't know that they have a problem. How are you making it a need to have problems to solve?
Yeah, it almost takes, especially today, 4 years ago was a little different. In the ZERP era, people were interested. If there was somewhat of a problem and there was an opportunity to solve it, they'd go and get it. Now it takes really approaching kind of a new prospect as developing the account, not like a person that you're talking to, and let's just go sell through that. So we have to do a lot of work to educate many people inside the org. And it also goes to our process. We very much can come off as, hey, let me tell you about a problem you didn't know you had. I'm someone you don't know. I'll show you that problem with my software. You might be able to verify it a little bit. And then I'll show you how big the problem is for you. You give me $100,000 and we'll go ahead and wipe it away. Right? Like that's a hard thing to solve for. So we also designed our whole sales process in turning ourselves over. There's so many stories out there today about how the buyers want to be in control and the buyers want to do their research. That's what we try to do in our sales process. Give you access to as much information as you possibly can of what's going on. Show you how we do our scoring. Show you even like how we've built our models and what's happening inside your organization, and then turn that over into a business case. We have this great thing where like if someone actually spends time with our solution engineers, they want to buy. The issue is, do we get the decision makers there? So then how are we, kind of working through that org to understand what the problems that they actually want to solve, forget what we're showing them, and how does that connect back together? And how can we just get 5 minutes, 10 minutes of their time to even think that we close to know what we're doing, and then continue to give that reporting up to them to show how they solve their problems first.
Yeah. That long-term approach and kind of ideology can be tough in startup land, but this idea of like, we're here to develop the account and it's okay if it's not this quarter or next quarter. These are long-term games that we need to play. And this is, we're not just selling to this human, we're selling to this organization. And some of this effort we're putting in now might show up in 18 months, and that's okay. And that's, I think, healthy way of thinking and a healthy kind of attitude for leaders at an organization to have.
And that's especially for the enterprise. I mean, we have a PLG motion as well, where people just come in and self-serve. We've got SMB and commercial orgs where it's a little bit different. But
yeah, you definitely have to be a lot more stringent on average deal cycle length and things when you're at the smaller end of the spectrum. Do you have it broken out, kind of like the traditional way? You have SMB reps, mid-market, enterprise, anything novel there?
We actually are struggling with this today because, some of our biggest customers are actually smallish companies, 400 person public companies that do a ton of web volume. So we're actually trying to figure out today exactly, we keep shifting how we segment the business out.
That's an interesting topic. Yeah. How do you actually define that? And I think that's going to change even more. There's a lot of talk about, the next $1 billion company could be built by like 17 people using a bunch of these advancements in AI. And then if you have the traditional setup of segmenting folks from like, number of employees or number of seats in this business, like you're going to miss out on some big opportunities. So I think it's smart. You guys are thinking about it.
Well, we're thinking about it. Doesn't mean we
haven't cracked it yet. All right, man. I want to switch gears a little bit. Many listening to this would look at your career and be like, that is what I want my career to look like in SaaS. And they might just be starting out. Maybe they're halfway through their career, or, maybe they're at a similar level and just want to know how you did it. Fly me back to young Dave when you just finished college. How did this all kind of come to be? A lot of people we talk to kind of stumble into sales, and I think that was similar to your journey.
I actually, when I was graduating, I thought for sure I would either be on Wall Street or I would start my own business. Like, owning 30 Arby's was my dream. Like that, I think that would have been great.
You and Shaq, big franchise guys.
We could do a lot together. I ended up meeting these guys. There were like 15 guys working out of a dance studio in Columbus Circle. And this was back in like 2007 or 8. Startups weren't really a thing, but I really liked them. I thought they were really smart. And I thought that the best case or the worst case scenario was when these guys go under in 3 months, I'll learn what not to do when I start my business. And in the best case scenario, I'm the janitor at Google and be a multimillionaire and everything's great. And that actually turned out to be the latter, the janitor at Google situation. But when I started there, I said to the founder, I'll join, but I don't want to be in sales. I just know that I don't want to be in sales. And they said, we just want to get the right guys on the bus, that whole thing. 2 months later, I joined as like the third salesperson.
Sorry to cut you off. What was it about sales in those early days that you were like, nah, I don't want to do it? Did it look like too much work, or you had this perception?
I interned in commercial real estate and did a bunch of cold calling for them out of a cubicle with a bunch of 50-year-old guys around me. And those cold calls didn't work at all. And it just didn't seem like what I wanted to get going in. Like, I'm smarter than that. That's what I thought, which I'm definitely not. And at the time, what we were selling was we were calling gyms and health clubs and selling them like basically lead arbitrage. Like they'd pay us $5 to get someone who was interested in joining their gym and sign up for a membership. And to do it, you had to basically like cold call someone over the phone, get them to give you their credit card, and move on. And I couldn't do that for the life of me. I would sit on a rock in Central Park every day and just be like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. I could be flipping burgers or digging ditches somewhere. I got this rent to pay. Like, I'm not giving up. And I just one day decided that I would do it until I got fired, because it wasn't working. And as soon as I let go from that, from like feeling like I really, really needed it, suddenly it clicked, and I started selling, and I started, becoming one of the top salespeople, making a ton of money, feeling amazing. And with them, I very quickly became first manager, director. I was running like 100-person sales floor when I was very young, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I figured out that all the things I ever wanted from owning my own business or anything like that, where as hard as you work, you can get that back out of it, and the commissions are uncapped. But yet you don't have to take the risk of starting your own business. I really liked the balance, and I kind of fell in love. And for better or for worse, I've been doing that for a while now.
I love it, man. I feel like that experience, and I've had a similar experience where you're making those cold calls and trying to get a credit card over the phone. For me, it was this like work and travel agency, and it was like wasn't cheap. It was like $3,500 of like basically a one call close situation, and you get the cycles doing stuff like that. And selling enterprise software seems a lot easier once you get there. What did you kind of learn from that experience beyond, your perception of sales was different?
I mean, looking back now, I think the best people that I've ever hired are not your typical salespeople either. Like, they wanted to be a journalist, but that job doesn't really exist that anymore. Or that's unfortunate and not true. Or one of my mentors, his top salesperson was a guy that honestly he met that was driving a bus in the airport. And he somehow convinced him to start working in SMB sales for him. And like, a couple months later, the guy was making $250,000 a year cold calling. The people who really have the entrepreneurial spirit and drive are actually the ones who end up being really good salespeople, not the ones who necessarily just thought they were born for sales. I have a cousin who told me my wife's cousin, did not want to do sales. Recently, he just graduated. He had his MBA. Too smart for sales, didn't want to do that. He had all these things he wanted to do. I said, and he couldn't get a job. I said, hey, buddy, come shadow me at CHEQ and just see what it's like. And I think you're perfect for it. The super smart, personable, energetic, really fun college athlete. And once he saw what it was, he fell in love. And now that guy is a top SDR, one of the top 8 AI startups now. He's doing like 250% of goal. He absolutely loves it. And those are the guys. Those are the people to build careers with, in my opinion. So I don't know. I learned that going backwards, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I've learned the same thing. I think one of my best hires ever, at least in the early parts of my career, was an Irish guy by the name of Billy Lane, who at the time was literally digging ditches, like construction, but he had like sold newspapers back in the day. And I had interviewed 50 people, and I wasn't in a rush to make this hire. I just needed the right hire. And he was just so hungry. And I think there's the untraditional background that I think do well. And then people that have experienced a level of discomfort or pain. Like, he was just like, I don't want to go back to digging ditches. Like, this is not that hard. Making 100 cold calls a day beats getting up at 6 a.m, going out in the rain and, laying pipe in ditches. It's that pain that can, get you through the ups and downs of sales. How is that translated now into your hiring practices at CHEQ? Like, do you actively seek out untraditional backgrounds? How do you do that? Hiring is tough right now.
Backgrounds, yes and no. It's more about what you were talking about in the mindset and the spirit. And you know, we want, especially as you move through into more enterprise sales, the more salesy you are, the less you're actually going to be able to build that trusting relationship. So, we really do try to take untraditional prototype, if you will. And, you got to have that hunger, you got to have that spirit, you got to be willing to work. And we can teach a lot of those things to you. But, just going back to what we were saying before, like the key to actually working through an organization right now, really solving true problems for very important and powerful people, means that they need to trust you. And you need to be like as much of a project manager and a detective and a relationship builder as anything, to actually figure out what these guys need and trust them enough to tell you what that is and let you in a little bit more at a time. So probably not a whole lot of tips there, but it's what we try to score for and hire for. And a lot of the guys that work for me, to be honest, at CHEQ now, have worked for me across like 3 or 4 different companies. I started at CHEQ during the pandemic. And so instead of hiring necessarily the right people, I hired a bunch of people that I could trust and know what was going on. And I think there's just a lot of compounding interest that happens when you can really, really know people and build with them.
AI is creating endless opportunities for sellers and the SaaS industry, as 77% of companies are either using or currently exploring AI. Still, it can be overwhelming to understand where and how to implement it properly into your tech stack. That's why our friends at Aurum launched Bold Calling, their new podcast. Every episode features a prominent tech founder or sales leader, their daily challenges, and how they're using the latest technologies to solve them. Aurum's AI dialing solution maximizes the amount of conversation your sellers can have while cold calling. Sellers still devote up to 30 hours per week to admin tasks, and 78% of sales professionals agree that AI can help them spend more time on the most critical tasks. Anshul Gupta, co-founder of Actively.ai, shares a game-changing solution for reclaiming that time using AI on the very first episode of Bold Calling. And if you're curious how sales and marketing leaders are actually implementing AI tools, I would highly suggest checking out episode 2. They dive deep into it, and it's well worth the listen. Bold Calling from Aurum is available wherever you subscribe to your podcasts, and be sure to check out the episode show notes to download Aurum's State of AI in Sales Development report. Now on to the episode. I mean, on the flip side, so we talked about hiring entry level. For the founders listening to this, that would be my first, or one of my first questions to any sales leadership that I'm looking to hire is, who's coming with you and who has come with you across organizations? I think that's how you can tell, people are willing to go to battle with this person, like again and again and again. That's a huge testament to, your leadership and the cultures you've been able to create. One thing is on the same vein, kind of in this culture piece, so you optimize for hunger, right? These like just exceptionally driven people. You're lucky enough to find them. I think there is, and not to overgeneralize generations, but this next generation seems to be super hungry for upward mobility, right? They want the next step in like 9 months, and then they want the next one nine months after that. How do you think about kind of development and, I guess, sort of slowing people down in order for them to learn the things that they have to learn to be successful when they do make that next jump?
I think that's slowed down a little bit since the market, the hiring market has turned. People are often, or were for a long time, really quick to jump from here to there and to get an extra, 10 grand or something like that. I do think that if you're building a good culture and organization, just seeing some people move through the org is very helpful. But you're right. Like I can't be in a role more than 5 months. We do try to set pretty good expectations up front in the hiring process. But we also try to build in quite a few steps of of learning and growth. We're trying to revamp this now a little bit, but let's say you're in an organization that has SMB and commercial and enterprise sales. Wow, is there a lot of those are different skills to learn, and you're not going to master any one of them in 5 months. It's just not going to happen. And so if you can keep like a curriculum where people actually do feel that they're learning and see that they're learning, and you can change the titles or the role. You can go from an junior SDR to an SDR to a senior SDR. That matters a little bit, but it more matters about, can you tangibly see a difference in what you're learning and what your role is? Can you keep getting some new and added responsibility? And is that a little bit hard? Because if it's way too easy, you're going to still feel like you need to move through it. But if it's a little bit difficult with each new thing you get, and you're building towards a larger role, I haven't seen that jumpiness the way I had in the past.
Well, that's a good if that's slowing down. And I think it was just, I don't know, all you have to do is kind of look on LinkedIn that there was a lot of folks in the ZERP era that you're like, wow, they went from AE to like senior director of BD, and then they got like a VP of sales role, but like I don't even think they sold. And then all of a sudden you see, oh, and then they jumped from VP of sales back down to AE. You see like, oh, that didn't work. There was gaps that needed to be filled, and you can't. Shortcuts are tough. There's a few shortcuts, and exploit them if you can, but don't exploit them if you haven't learned what you need to learn, because you will have to learn the lessons eventually.
It comes to bear sooner or later.
Always does. All right, man. I want to go quickly to a listener question. I think this one is perfect, and would love your point of view on this. The question is, I'm struggling to find my footing as an AE at a large company after spending a lot of time at startups. Overall, it feels easier. I have more support than ever before, but I don't think my impact is being felt, and I'm worried that it'll take forever to get promoted. Very in line with what we were just talking about. Any tips for standing out at a larger company?
Oh, I like that one though. So I by the way, right before I came to CHEQ, I did go into a $90 billion Japanese organization. So as big and slow as it gets, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. In fact, I thought that's where I was going to stay. I swore off startups, and as fate would have it. I think the first thing is, it is going to be slow. If you're used to startups, it's going to be slow. That's the reason why you go to a startup instead of a large company. I've sold a lot of people on that dream. If you do it well, if you do it right, what you do in 2 years, you kind of skip the line of what everyone else can accomplish in 10 years. There's a value prop there. The flip side is, at a large company, you have resources, you have a brand, and you're not going after $10,000 deals or $100,000 deals. You can be going after $50 million deals, and really, really actually make an impact. It takes a while to get there. So you first just need to know. You have to be kind of on the same page of why are you going to one against the other. If you are there, be patient. It's gonna take time. But what's very different about a large company is, you need to sell internally as much as you need to sell externally. And that's not necessarily like the politicking game, but there are important people inside the company that can make things happen. And there's going to be a lot of people inside large companies that can't, that are more of a coasting mode, or happy or comfortable or retiring or something like that. And you need to find both the people that care to hustle and have the authority. It's just like finding your champions, externally. And you need to kind of kiss a lot of frogs to go find that, just like you do externally. And when you find them, you need to work closely with them, and you need to build that trust. You need to get out there, go out to a dinner if you can, go out to drinks, find mentors inside your company, and really, ask them a lot of questions and develop relationships there. And if you can do all that stuff, you're going to get access or at least know what's going on a little bit more than anyone else. And getting access to resources and information is how you'll get ahead at a larger company. Then if you do your job right and you're actually hitting your numbers, there's going to be a little bit different level of a spotlight that's shown on than if you're just employee number, 10,562. And that stuff matters. It's not just helpful because you're going to get promoted right away. Promotion is whatever. But you do want to get more opportunities and you want to learn. Those are guys and girls that are incredible people to learn from and that you'll probably work with throughout the rest of your career. At a large company, there's many opportunities that open up. And just like we were talking about before, people hire those that they know and like and trust, not necessarily just ones that have the perfect experience for it.
Huge call out. And, I think coming from the startup landscape, like politics is a waste of time at a small company, and everyone feels that. And you're like, just go do the thing. And then I think you join these large organizations and you still carry that with you. But it's not about playing politics so people, just like you more or politics for politics' sake. Like this is what makes you an effective AE, an effective leader at these companies. What would you say the split of your time was spent managing internal relationships versus external when you were at, this huge company?
I was in management also at the large company. So naturally, I'm probably 50-50 internal to external as it is. I was probably like 70% internal. Every customer meeting that I had or request, I had to go wrangle a lot of different cats internally and forecast and report on it. As an AE, I think, though, even at a large company, it does end up being 50-50 or more, especially if you have a big channel and partnerships angle. I will tell like one quick story, just as what we're talking about for this guy. When I was at Hitachi, we had a huge SDR team. We had 150 some SDRs, and they overnight decided to cut the entire program. And there was one guy who was a top SDR there who had actually asked to come to our QBRs in person, had met us, was always asking a lot of questions of leadership and my AEs, really thoughtful guy. And he was the top SDR. He was really performing. When they cut that team, my boss, the SVP of the org, said, "Hey, we should grab Taylor and maybe put him on your team as a junior AE." At the time, all of my reps were, I think, like 38 years old was the youngest that we had. Everyone, had been 20, 30 years experience. And we put him on our team as a junior AE to try to figure it out. He did incredibly. That junior AE position wasn't a good fit for like more of a commercial thing, wasn't a good fit for our go-to-market. But we really started to trust him. We moved him to New York and we actually gave him a shot at some enterprise accounts, and he blew them out of the water. And he was running circles around my 50-year-old employees in a lot of ways. And kid made something like $500,000 in his first year as an AE on my team. He was 23, 24. And now that guy he's sending me his $10 million contracts at a really hot AI startup. So that stuff happens. You can get there pretty quickly if you're working hard and trying to meet the right people.
Yeah. Great story. And I hope that gives whoever asked that question some hope. You will get noticed if you do the right things, and unfortunately got to play the political game a little bit. All right, man. Well, this has been awesome. I got final 2 questions for you. I keep these the same. They're intentionally vague, so take them wherever you want. What is one widely held belief that revenue leaders still hold today that you think is bullshit or no longer serving us?
We actually just talked about this, but I'll just pull out the thread a little bit more. Don't follow the money. Don't think when you're young in your career that jump is the best way for you to get there. Find people that you like to work with, can build with, you think are really smart, and try and compound those interests together. Uh, at a you can't really build dynasties at a sports team, or they eventually have to die out because the cap and people get old. Doesn't really happen at startups. If you are with people that you can enjoy being with, create with, learn from, just keep leaning into that and keep iterating yourself. Have a growth mindset for yourself. Keep iterating yourself 0.5% every single day. Make sure the business is doing the same. And if you just keep working on that, you're going to eventually find that, the name on the front of the jersey matters a lot more than the name on the back. And if you can build that great company, you're going to have the best outcomes you possibly can. I mean, I know you guys have found that. You and Max and the crew have been together for quite a while. I just consistently find that is the name of the game, and feel lucky to have been working on that here at CHEQ.
That's one of the most consistent themes of this podcast, not like outwardly talked about like this, but if you look at almost every super successful revenue leader founder that we interview, they have built with the same people or stayed at the same company. They all have a 4-year plus run with the same people focused on the same problem, all of them. And it's due to what you were talking about, this compound interest that comes from knowledge and relationships is kind of like the secret sauce. Again, it goes back kind of full circle to what we were talking about. When you have trust, speed is so much, you can go so much faster, right? I think Benioff said like speed is the currency of business, and with trust, you can just move way faster because okay, XYZ person, they got that. I'll focus on my lane, and when we need to collaborate, we can.
And it goes on the flip side too, right? Like you think you're, if you're moving from commercial into enterprise, think, well, hey, I had that hustler AE, but now it's time to get the guy who has the accounts or has been there, done that. Or, the VC advice is always take a VP of sales from 0 to $20 million, and then you need your 20 to 50 guy and 50 to 100.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
The best sales leaders I know got the opportunity to do it, had the growth mindset, and kept going and kept. You just had Eric Gilpin on from Upwork a little while ago, and he was telling a story about day zero on the enterprise go to market, and then 7 years later, $13 million deals. Same guy, same team. And all, he's talking about all the great things he got from just compounding and working with those people over and over and over for 7 years. I think it's the way.
Agreed. I saw another good example of that is Mark Costaglo, and I watched him at Outreach literally be the 5th employee, like selling these small deals, going like office to office to, closing $10 million deals and working with the SMB team, with the commercial team, with the enterprise team. And I think it can be the kiss of death. I think some of the mistakes we made during that time period was going and be like, okay, let's go find the 100 million ARR plus guy or gal. And like, it's just too hard to do without all of this compounding knowledge and relationships. So I'm with you. All right. Everyone's looking for silver bullets. We know they don't exist, but we try and give some anyway. What is one go-to-market tactic or strategy that is actively working right now for CHEQ?
We're going old school. We are really leaning into getting out, meeting our customers, building communities around them, all of that. I think this died a little bit during COVID, and it also became a lot harder because buyers realize they don't need to hang out with you anymore in order to buy necessarily, and they kind of don't want to, or it's not as comfortable anymore. And so it is really important to go build that trust, and the way to do it is you've got to get maybe like a 10-minute coffee first and let them see that you're a real person, and you might be okay with to be sponsored in front of their colleagues or to go out to dinner with for an hour or two. And then when you actually get there, you can learn so much more about each other, about the person, but also about what are they actually trying to solve for? What is actually important to them? What's actually in the way of solving that? And figure out how you actually like help the business instead of just sell a piece of software to them. My VP of EMEA at CHEQ is one of my best friends. We started at YEX together. He was telling my team an amazing story about one of the biggest deals he's sold. He used to fly to Kansas City to go to a gas station to meet a CIO like once a month because they had the best barbecue, his favorite barbecue sandwich. And so
is this in Texas? I feel like I've been to this gas. There can't be too many
Kansas City, actually.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess there's a lot of gas stations with good barbecue. Who knew? As a Canadian, that's not a thing.
It is. Well, better stuff in Canada. And he would pretend to be in town or whatever. He'd top a flight just for 20 minutes at a gas station every once in a while. And he started to build this trust with the CIO. And eventually that CIO really understood what was happening, and Roy knew what was going on there. And he started to get sponsored internally. And he started to take the whole teams out, and he started to really work through the organization and close one of the biggest deals of his life. But you got to be willing to get out there and do that for that, top a flight for a 15-minute coffee. It actually does matter. It actually is worth it. So we're doing a lot of that, and, connect our clients together. Don't just take our word for it. Be a sphere of influence to connect them together and learn from each other. That's been big for us.
Going back to the old school, I've been doing the same thing since, the post-COVID era, and it feels like an unfair advantage. I mean, almost like every new investor call I have, I'll leave them with, I can hop on a plane in 12 hours. Tell me where you're at and I'll be there. And I've done that multiple times, and it completely changes the game. I think every big investor that we've closed in this fundraise, we have met face to face. And it's huge. It sets you apart from the pack in a really big way.
It's too important, and it's nothing new, and it's something that you always need to do in enterprise. But that is more than anything today when I'm talking to my team, taking that shortcut of actually getting out there, getting in with them is what is cracking open our deals more than any other tactic that we can try to lean into right now.
I love it. Awesome, man. Well, Dave, thank you so much for the time. Always enjoy hanging out with you, and excited to see you in a couple of weeks. Any, people might listen to this and be like, I want to go work for Dave. Are you hiring for any positions across the organization right now?
We're in slow growth mode. We are hiring a bit. Come talk to me, Dave Greenberger on LinkedIn.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Appreciate you and all of our listeners. Thanks for hanging out with us, lending us your eardrums. Of course, I always say it, but listening's one thing, executing's totally different. Hopefully this sparks some ideas for growth with you, both personally and professionally. And we'll see you next week.